you doing, sir?
I'm good, and I'm already jealous of your toys, but I'm sure you get that a lot.
That's what I put them up for. It's literally for you.
Anthony Ramos, I think, is literally fighting one of those Transformers as we speak right now.
First, I want to start by saying how much I want to thank you for giving me your time this morning. I know that your time is precious. I just want to say thank you. So before we jump into In the Heights, which I absolutely loved, I've been asking a lot of people during the pandemic a few of the same first questions, and I would like to ask you those as well. What TV series would you love to guest star on?
Guest star on? Oh, I thought you were going to say, was I watching? The show we watched the most during the pandemic was Bluey, because it is the only kids show that like the whole family can be hysterically laughing at. But I wouldn't dare guest star on it. You need to be Australian to be on that show. So guest star, I have no idea. I'm sorry. I also watch a lot of reality TV show, and you don't want me on Blow Up because I would break all the glass.
What movie or movies do you think you've seen the most?
Oh, that's a good question. During the pandemic.
It doesn't even have to be during the pandemic.
Oh, like just full stop in my
general.
life?
Yeah.
There's certain movies that if I'm switching channels and they're on, I just drop the remote and sit down. Godfather and Godfather 2 are among those movies. I watch Seven Samurai once a year. I always try to rope someone else into it. I actually roped my 14 and 16-year-old nephews into it. And that was a joy. I was like, this movie's 3 hours long. It's in Japanese. It's black and white, but I swear it's one of the best movies ever made. Like, stick with me. And they loved it. But again, like, I honestly think it's probably like Lion King, because I watched it a lot when I was a kid, and my kids like can't get enough.
I asked this question of a lot of people, and I think you might be an anomaly that this might not apply to you. If you could get the financing for any project tomorrow, what would you make and why? I think there's a lot of people that want to get in business with you, which is why I don't know if this question applies to you.
I will. I can't tell you. I can't tell you because I literally can't tell you because I'm thinking of one specifically and I'm working on it.
That's what I was saying. I think that people want to line up to be in business with you, which is an amazing.
They don't always want to line up, but but I'm working on it.
Completely. I loved Howard Ashman's work. I think he was a genius, and I find it interesting that he worked in the theater, created these great things, and then went over to Disney and had his hand in bringing back animation. And his work is iconic. Have you ever realized or thought about the fact that you theater, and then all of a sudden you're working in animation, bringing your voice to all these animated projects? And it's a similar, I don't want to say obviously you never had the success that you had on Broadway, but it's interesting that you guys are walking a similar path.
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, I think that Howard Ashman is as responsible for me talking to you as anyone in my life. Little Mermaid was the first time I felt truly transported in the movies. I just read that Sam Wright passed. I'm heartbroken I never got to meet him before he passed, because I spent fourth grade jumping on my desk singing Under the Sea. But the other really big lesson in Howard Ashman's work was that he brought not just his incredible lyric writing and Alan Menken's incredible songwriting, but his sense of musical structure and his incredible storytelling sense. And that has been a model not just for me, but for Bobby and Kristen Lopez, and for so many folks, for Benj and Justin, who got to work on the new Aladdin. I'll never forget the first table read I sat for Moana. Someone sort of turned around and said to me, like, don't forget to raise your hand, because like we all are going to be doodling and we know what we do, but we don't do what you do. So like raise your hand and tell us what musicals can do in this space that we don't know. And that was incredibly empowering to me. And it's been a joy working on Vivo and working on Encanto at Disney in particular, because I'm the guy that raises my hand and says, I can do that in a song, or I can, like we can have those characters sing to each other. You don't need 3 scenes about it. Again, like that's the real legacy of Howard Ashman, I think, to me, is that he brought so many of the incredible like musical theater techniques to animated film.
Yeah, I for people that don't know who he is, my God, research him.
Yeah,
he's beyond genius. So my last thing before getting into In the Heights, there's rumors that you and Weird Al are working on this new thing for Hall of Presidents at Disneyland. Is that true, or is it not true?
That is not true. But what a rumor! Like, no, not even a little true. But no,
it's good to.
Listen, I will have any excuse to call Weird Al. That's my guy. I actually just called him last week because that great Times story about him got put in audio form, and I was just like, I read this article and I'm going to listen to it now. I love you, Al. Goodbye.
Jumping into the reason I get to talk to you today, and again, In the Heights, I cannot recommend this film enough. But I want to go backwards. Originally, Kenny Ortega was going to helm this. Back when it first got acquired, it was going to be at Universal. At that point, would you have reprised your role if Kenny had made the film?
Yeah, that was the plan. And Kenny is wonderful, and Kenny is still a good friend. But we got stuck in like the old Hollywood way of thinking, the hopefully old Hollywood way of thinking, which was it went from we'll do anything to make this movie to if this international music star isn't in this role, we can't make the movie because there are no Latino stars who test international. Now, listen, there were no Latino stars in The Heights when we opened on Broadway, and no one had ever heard of me and Kiara, and no one had ever heard of our actors, our creative team. So we didn't think that would be a barrier at the time. But again, it was sort of the lie that becomes a self-perpetuating thing. Like, if you don't give Latino actors the shots in those roles, you don't make international stars. And one of the things that Jon did so brilliantly with Crazy Rich Asians was he stacked the deck. He stacked the deck with Asian and Asian American stars that you know very well, and folks who are absolutely stars. And what he did was actually create lanes where none existed with that film. And now Gemma Chan is going to be in a Marvel movie, and now Henry Golding is Snake Eyes. Like, that's unbelievable. They're movie stars, and they always were. They just didn't get the at bat. And that's my hope for In the Heights is, I think I already joked to you that like Anthony's in a Transformers movie. And I hope that for Leslie, and I hope, I hope that we make this lane and sort of forever give a lie to, let's not take chances on young Latino talent. They don't test international. We're 32 countries. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything you just said. Can you describe, though, how did Kenny's vision compare to what Jon brought to the screen? Was it similar at all? Was it radically different?
It was apples to oranges because it was a different time. The screenplay did not have the updates that this current screenplay had. It was much closer to the original show. Kenny is an amazing director, an amazing musical director. So that'll always be a what if in my head. But again, like the time and the distance Kiara had to update this script could not have happened if that movie version had gone through. Like, I'm very like Zen, it happens for a reason about it, because so many of the updates that Kiara thought of to really smartly update this for now wouldn't have existed in that version. So, and then Jon's big pitch, which we never had the clout to do in the other version, was these are everyday folks, but they have huge dreams. We were never given the permission to fully shoot on location in that other version, and to film an Esther Williams number at the High Bridge Pool, which exists on 175th Street, to film Paciencia y Fe in the One Street Tunnel. Those weren't on the table because the budget constraints were what they were in the previous version. So Jon really sort of had the vision and the clout to be able to get these characters to dream as big as possible and put that on screen.
I think one of the reasons this film worked so well for me was the filming on location. That just added so much it just brought everything alive. I have to ask you, what was it like for you watching this finished film for the first time? And I know it's a kind of a weird, I'm sure you loved it, but it had to be just so amazing to watch this because it's so good. And I'm just curious what you thought.
Yeah, it's very hard to answer this question without crying, so I apologize in advance. But there were layers to it, right? There's the location scout where you're walking Jon through the neighborhood you've spent your life in, and you go, oh, well, my wife and I on our first date walked through here. And then suddenly we're filming when you're home there. There's the 190th Street Tunnel where Paciencia y Fe happens and Abuela Claudia sings. And that was the tunnel I traversed to visit my abuela, because my abuela in the last years of her life was in an elderly nursing home on 190th and Autobahn on the other side of the island. And I would go through that tunnel, take the elevator up. So that abuela sings her song there, again and again, the entire score is a love letter to this neighborhood. So to film it on location was just unbelievable. And then the part that I can't talk about without crying is the way in which we were embraced by the neighborhood. The fact that we set up shop on 175th Street and we cast as many local extras as we could. And we got costume elements from the local stores, and we, our catering was local, and like every aspect of it, we just tried to be good neighbors while we were there. And it was an incredible summer. And then when I watch it, I can't believe it was real. I can't believe I would film these songs with the hydrants open and I would walk home. It's never going to happen to me again. So it was, I'll tell you that when they first started rehearsing When You're Home, I didn't know it was going to be in J. Hood Wright Park. I walked my son to preschool through that park. And when I picked him up, I brought him to rehearsal and I called my wife and said, I know you're working, but you should get over here. And she came down from our apartment to look at the rehearsal, and she just looks up and goes, that's my grandmother's building. I go, she goes, my grandmother's building is going to be in this movie? I mean, the layers to this shit, it's just, it's because it's also a place where we've spent our lives. So it's not just the creative journey, it's our life journey is reflected in this.
I'm almost out of time. I want to bullet hit you with a few other things because I have so much I want to ask you about. Do you think that I have to ask you the Hamilton movie question, but I'm curious, due to the popularity of the stage production all around the world and the money that it generates, does that impact sort of people's desire to make a movie out of it because there's so much money with the production and how much it's generating, or does that not impact it at all?
I don't know whether it's money or not, but I feel like I got a golden ticket because Tommy actually made the stage production a satisfying movie theatrical experience. It's very old school to put an intermission in a movie. But Fiddler on the Roof did that. There are movies, that older musicals that did that. So I mean, for me, it's not so much that there's less desire, because I get asked the question by every film interviewer that interviews me, but do we need it? And what is the directorial vision behind it? Because when it comes to adaptations, it's really hard to adapt musicals. What stays and what goes when you have a movie that has all the songs in it. So, it's going to take a director with a really clear and strong vision to
John Chu, what?
Yeah,
John Chu.
Jon's now busy he's in Wicked Land now, which is really exciting. Wicked is where, when I was working on In the Heights, Lackamore, my music director, was the only one with a real job in the business, and he was conducting Wicked. So we would sit in the pit And like, that was my first time in an orchestra pit. So the fact that there's a weird full circle thing about that Jon is now tackling that next.
I have to wrap. I'm just going to say I cannot wait to see what you've done with Jonathan's work with Tick Tick Boom. And I'm there's so much I want to ask you about that, but hopefully I can do that when it's coming out later this year. But
I look forward to that.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I mean, anyway, I got to go. Thank you so much and have a fantastic day.
You too.